as much as I love getting people set up on our pillows and hearing the stories of how our pillows help people sleep better, I just love being part of the conversation about how people can optimize their sleep. And I love the movement that's happening right now about people actually caring about getting optimal sleep because they realize what a tool it can be to help them improve athletic performance. And the only reason I really care about like getting optimal sleep is because I like seeing what people can accomplish when they're well rested and like doing all the things right.
Welcome to Long Run Labs, a weekly podcast from the team behind For the Long Run, telling the stories of those running the outdoor industry where endurance and entrepreneurship meet. This episode is sponsored by Superaffiliate, the affiliate platform I keep coming back to, and for good reason. I've seen just about every affiliate tool out there, both as a creator and on the brand side, and honestly, most of them are clunky, overpriced, and way too complicated. Superaffiliate is the opposite. Setup is simple, tracking is seamless, and payouts actually make sense. It just works. If you're a brand that wants to grow through partnerships, Superaffiliate makes it easy to get your affiliates and partners excited and engaged. Think co-branded landing pages featuring their own content, flexible rewards like cash, credit, or gifts, all designed to actually move the needle. So if you're tired of wasting time and money on platforms that don't deliver, head to superaffiliate.com. Tell them I sent you, and you'll get your first month free. And welcome back to the Long Run Labs podcast. We have Ryan Hurley of Lagoon joining today. Ryan, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. We've known each other for a while. I've enjoyed watching what you're building over at Lagoon, the sleep and fitness business. I have a couple of pillows from you that you sent me a while back.
Yeah.
And yeah, excited to dive into what makes you unique and learn a little bit more about your founder's journey. So before we dive into all of that, tell me, who is Ryan?
Yeah. Loaded question. Well, I just have to start by saying thank you for saying Lagoon. I feel like I'm constantly living in a world of the Facebook where I have to explain to people that just because our website is lagoonsleep.com doesn't mean the brand name is Lagoon Sleep. So thanks for nailing it. You're off to a great start. But yeah, I mean, the story of Ryan, it's funny being, so ingrained in the running community now. The story of Ryan was like actually hating running growing up, grew up as a swimmer. Swimming was my identity all the way, from 8 years old to, through my collegiate years. And the only time I ran was when coaches were yelling at me and throwing stuff at me and telling us we had to in, off-season training. But, came to love the sport of running as an adult. But really, it's just, athletics and the whole idea of chasing a goal, building and working towards something that I've appreciated, growing up and through my adult life. So it feels like that's been a part of my, what makes me tick. And then being able to now build a business, which, in and of itself is probably the hardest endurance sport out there, but getting to do it, in a space with a crowd, with an audience that I so self-identify with has kind of been like a dream come true. So anybody that's an entrepreneur, building a business, it can only be your dream to be able to build around something that you're really excited and passionate about. So that's just a little bit of how I got to where I am today.
I love it. And you're a pretty good swimmer too. You run now, but you were a D1 swimmer at the University of Virginia and a two-time Olympic trials finalist. Talk to me about the transition to running. Why did that happen? You didn't want to keep the 6 a.m. swims post-collegiate?
Yeah, I mean, I still get up early. I've always gotten up early, but there is something different about waking up early to go for a run versus waking up and jumping into a cold pool. Jumping into a cold pool really sucks, especially when it's freezing out. But I mean, really the real reason is there's not, especially when I was graduating college, it was really hard to have a life as an athlete after collegiate sports. Maybe it's changing now a little bit with NIL and maybe building a little bit of a brand and a platform for yourself as an athlete, but it's still pretty hard. I was a good swimmer, but unless you were Michael Phelps or Ryan Lochte, you weren't making six figures or anything like that in the sport of swimming. So you see most people kind of just head into the real world. And I was okay with that too. I think, I was really burned out from the sport. It's a hard sport to stay in love with, if you ask me. At least when you're running, you get to chat with people when you're out on the long run. I know that's one of your favorite things too.
Yeah.
Man, when you're just staring at the black line on the bottom of the pool, I'm not that interesting just talking to myself for that long. So I was excited to just try something new too. I knew I was never going to be, unless I continued at that high level, it was never going to be as good of a swimmer as I was at that point in time. So I was actually just drawn to the idea of chasing something new. And at first it was triathlons. So I got into that sport, and people were like, well, now that you're doing this, why don't you start taking running more seriously? And so it felt like just kind of a natural, easy transition. And I like the idea of like continually trying to be the best at something new. That's something that drives me personally.
And you fell off the deep end, swimming pun intended, obviously. You're training for your first 100-miler this fall. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, again, I've crossed a couple of things off the bucket list already. I did an Ironman in 2019. That still to this day is by far the hardest physical thing, I will say. Starting a business is way harder in a lot of different ways, but the most pain, like sustained pain I've ever been in, is definitely the Ironman. So I'm not like excited to go back to that anytime soon, but I did a 50-miler and I was like, okay, well, I am turning 40 this year as well. So, a big round number, I was like, maybe deserves a big round number. So that's motivating me to do something big. Right around my 40th birthday, I'll go ahead and see if I can tackle 100 miles.
And which race is that?
Doing the Kodiak in California, like a couple hours outside of LA. I don't know that much about it, but it seemed like the elevation wasn't too crazy. And so I was like, okay, this seems like a good medium for my first 100-miler.
What's scaring you most about that event?
Honestly, I probably should be like a little bit more scared. I really like doing hard things. So, I'm okay going into the pain cave. I think probably the thing that scares me the most is just like some of the technical things that you haven't done before. So, my first 50-miler was getting the nutrition right was a big thing. I was getting there towards the end where I wasn't feeling so good and needed to change some things up. So getting the nutrition right is obviously a big one. And then just the idea of running through the dark for 8 hours. That's something I haven't done on trails before. So I'm looking forward to, over the next couple of months here, starting some runs at 3 a.m., just getting comfortable with my headlamp on, kicking some dirt and some rocks, hopefully not tripping over too much.
That's awesome. I also don't like night running, and I try to avoid it whenever possible. And if I could figure out how to run a 100-miler without having to run in the dark, I would be much more interested in running a 100-miler, but I don't think I'm that fast.
Well, so that's actually one thing I liked looking at races that I like about Kodiak. They start at 1 p.m. on Friday, whereas I feel like a lot of races start at 7 a.m. on Saturday. And then it feels like you're gearing up towards going into the night when you're already feeling pretty crappy. Whereas I feel like this way, starting at 1 p.m. on Friday, I don't know, I haven't done the math, but I'll be doing miles like 40, 50, 60, something like that in the dark, as opposed to doing miles like 80 and 90 in the dark, which probably you're already in really bad shape. The last thing you need to be doing is being like alone in the dark at the same time. So I'm actually happy about that decision for that reason.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've done some pacing at the 100-mile distance, and I started with one friend at like 6 p.m. and another at 6 a.m. And it's fascinating, like what daylight or losing daylight does to a runner. Like,
I mean, you got to tell me. I'm like dying to know. Like, did you just see spirits being deflated when like when the sun goes down?
A little bit, yeah. But don't worry, you have a sunrise coming eventually.
There you go. Just however many hours later. But I'm kind of like looking forward to those dark moments. I feel like I've seen the ebbs and flows. I know you hit highs and lows. So I know I'm going to hit some lows and like be like, why did you think this was a good idea? What are you doing here? But I actually think that's probably one of the things that I find most interesting about ultra running is that it lets you explore mentally some of those lows because, you can find just physical pain in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms, I think.
Totally. Okay, let's switch over to the business side of Ryan. So you spent 10 years at NBC Sports. What motivated you to be in the roles that you were in over there?
Yeah, well, I loved working at NBC Sports. And the reason I was so drawn to it from a pretty young age, it in my mind was kind of the golden goose of the jobs I wanted to get coming out of school. And it really was because of the Olympic movement. I remember the 1996 Atlanta Games and watching like the opening ceremonies with my family and, watching Tom Dolan win the 400 IM. And that, that was right around the time I was just getting into swimming. But I feel like that Olympic movement and just watching the Olympics was really what got me into the sport of swimming. And I credit the sport of swimming for making me who I am today. I think my resolve, my perseverance, grit, determination, whatever you want to call it, I feel like was so formed by my experience with swimming. endurance sports, whatever, however you want to categorize that. So I was really looking forward to the idea of going into NBC Olympics because I wanted to give back to that. I mean, I thought what a cool experience that would be to be able to help build and pass that on to the next generation. So I was just really, really excited to get there. I went through the whole, like stereotypical process. I started in the NBC page program. I was, given tours of 30 Rock, all the, eating dollar slices of pizza in New York City, all the stuff that's like so stereotypical just to get your foot in the door and find a way. But I had so many good experiences there and love kind of the journey that it took me through. I ultimately got into like business development, which was such a great spot for me to learn. And I got to see a lot of startups when I was in business development because what business development means at NBC Sports is either you're working on major rights deals, which is, a really cool experience in and of itself. Like I got to work on the deal bringing Thursday night football to NBC Sports, which was really cool. But then we also got to explore what other, M&A opportunities were out there, what companies we want to invest in or acquire. And I worked on a big deal to acquire Sports Engine. And, any parents listening out there right now are like, yeah, of course I use Sports Engine all the time to manage my kids' sports. But if you don't have kids in sports, you probably have no idea what Sports Engine is. But I mean, it's an awesome platform that helps enable sports, tech platform that helps enable sports. We acquired in 2015. And it was awesome because in my mind, that was kind of the next generation of enabling sports. So if in my mind, trying to figure out what I'm passionate about was trying to get people to chase that Olympic movement, it seemed like a great version to say, hey, let's invest in and build this platform that just helps more people participate in sports and be able to do the thing that I credit so much of my grit determination to. I was really excited, got to do that for several years. That's what brought me out to Minneapolis. But, as the Sports Engine business was getting bigger, I did have just this draw to want to create my own thing at some point in time. So I was helping build somebody else's dream and somebody else's vision, but, just felt like I was constantly getting that pull to start my own thing at some point.
Where did the idea for Lagoon come from?
I was thinking of ideas. So I'd be lying if it was, to say that it wasn't just like everything spontaneous. I was constantly thinking about, what problems do I have? What could I solve? What would be a good thing for me to jump into? I definitely will say that I gravitated towards the sleep category more than most people probably would. And I do think that was because of my swimming background. Like I've always just been really fixated on sleep and really cognizant of sleep. I mean, when you're waking up at 4:15 in the morning as a 13-year-old, you're like well aware of how much, how valuable sleep is. So that was just something that I've always been thinking about. And I had that aha moment one day when finally, another pillow that I had bought from, I think it was Home Goods. I'm like, I thought this was a good pillow, but man, it sucks. How did this thing die overnight or whatever it was? And I was ready to toss it again. I was like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, why did I buy these pillows? What was my thought process here? Did I have a thought process or how are people buying pillows today? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty broken. And I also it must have been, I had listened to How I Built This podcast sometime recently, and the Method Soap example, if you haven't heard it before, but that one is always one that stuck out with me, where the guys literally go through the shopping aisles at a Target or wherever, and they look for things that are unsexy. And wow, that thing could use a revamp. And I was like, okay, well, I feel like the pillow kind of matches that sniff test as well, too, of the pillow is not super glamorous or sexy or something that people are really excited to buy. But why is it not, right? Shouldn't it be one of the top 10, 20 most important things that you buy, considering how much time you spend with it? So I was like, okay, could we take this thing, make it sexy, because it really should be a valuable, important purchase for you to make. So that's kind of how I started with pillows. But I realized over time too that it's really hard to build a brand just around a product, because it just feels like it's not that impactful when you're just talking about a product. And I realized pretty early on that the opportunity was to be, thanks for introducing it as such, Lagoon as a sleep and fitness business, because as much as I love getting people set up on our pillows and hearing the stories of how our pillows help people sleep better, I just love being part of the conversation about how people can optimize their sleep. And I love the movement that's happening right now about people actually caring about getting optimal sleep because they realize what a tool it can be to help them improve athletic performance. And the only reason I really care about getting optimal sleep is because I like seeing what people can accomplish when they're well rested and doing all the things right. So part of me is only excited about sleep because of what people are doing, because they're doing that passive thing quite well.
There's so much noise these days around do this, do that, eat this food, don't eat that food. And people are, what's the saying? missing the forest for the tree. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
For sure.
And sleep is one of those fundamental and foundational pillars of like, you need to nail this before you think about the 1%. And I think very early on in our conversations, you made some comment around like, we spend $1,000 on our mattress, but $20 on our pillow. Like, why is it so offset like that?
Or $5,000 on a cold plunge and like not, not think about your pillow. But I mean, all those things are important, but I do think it's like, I actually feel really fortunate. If we were having this conversation 5 years ago, I think a lot more people would be like, I'll sleep when I'm dead type of things. But I do feel like, especially in the fitness space, the running space, like it's not cool to say that it's not cool to say that anymore. Everybody's busy. We all could be doing a million things. It actually is much more of like a flex or like, to be able to say, yeah, I have a million things to do, but I'm still able to prioritize getting 8 hours of quality sleep because I know how important that is. So I feel really fortunate that people are coming around to that. And it feels like it's permeating in just good ways throughout our community as well too. Like, thank goodness jobs and industries and everybody are like more understanding of that, because I mean, you look at like kind of the outliers of like Wall Street, or shockingly enough, like the medical fields, doctors and nurses, like all these people, like how are those the people that are still pulling all-nighters and just not getting proper sleep? But I don't know. It feels like the world we're in is definitely moving in the right direction.
Definitely. So a challenge that you could face is to say our total addressable market is every human on the planet, which in theory it is, but not every single person is going to think about upgrading and enhancing their pillow in order to maximize sleep and what they can do the next day. So how did you land on running as the market that you wanted to address and bring this solution to, when, again, you could have literally picked anything because everybody sleeps?
Yeah. I mean, this is one thing that I didn't really think about as like a business owner. I came into the business being like, let's have a good product. Let's have a novel concept. And like, let's take it to the people. And you hear people say like niching down, or like you got to have a niche or like something very specific. And there's definitely truth to that. But then you're like, okay, but you also have to have a path to be able to take it to 100 million people. Otherwise, your business is never going to get to be bigger than like 6 figures or something like that. So you're like, how do you balance and rectify those things is really difficult. I definitely say when I started out way too broad. I was like, yeah, exactly what you said, Jonathan. I mean, this pillow could be used by anybody. So why would we not talk to everybody? And man, I was trying to market our pillows to mommy bloggers and home interior designers and all these people that are on Instagram or need pillows too. But, like all the other pillow companies are trying to get attention from these people as well too. And I'm not a home interior designer. I'm not a mommy blogger. And it wasn't until then that I actually really grew to understand the importance of brand and building a brand, and like how almost even as important as the product itself that is. And that's been a really like fascinating part of the journey for me too, because I love building a great product. I think we have amazing products, but I actually think that brand is just as, if not more important than the product itself too. Because what do you stand for? What are you about? A home interior designer probably isn't going to buy a pillow from Lagoon today. But like, if I see somebody out on a run and tell them what I'm working on and like tell them why I'm doing it, they're like, oh, like, cool. I like this guy. I get what he's about. And so the reason I love brand so much is because I get to build the brand the way that I want to build the brand around the things that I'm passionate about. And there's certainly a need. And I think runners over-index too in terms of how much they care about getting optimal sleep. Like I kind of just said, I do think that we're in a space where people are thinking about this stuff and trying to optimize for this stuff. So it made sense given my background, given what I'm passionate about, and giving that over index of how much people care about optimizing sleep for us to really hone in on it. And nobody else is trying to be the pillow for runners. So it created some like white space for us as well too. Whereas, we're a brand that, has no institutional investment, building things from scratch, where I actually had some room to breathe and actually try and build something without feeling like I needed to compete with every marketing dollar, that Casper or Purple or Lisa are spending.
So then what happens? How did you begin? I became aware of the brand from Corey McGee posting about it, who I think is a friend of yours.
Yeah.
And that was probably 2023.
Probably. Yep. Yeah. Maybe even a little bit earlier, but it's funny. I mean, that's the beginning. Like Corey was the beginning. She was the first runner we had post about anything. And Corey's friend, her husband is one of my very best friends from UVA. We swam together at UVA. And she was like, yeah, sure. I'll do a post on Instagram and share about the business. And I was like, oh, wow, this actually is like converting better than the home interior designers and, and the mommy bloggers. And I was like, well, I feel stupid saying this. Looking back on it, it seems so obvious, but I was like, well, Ryan, why didn't you just originally start focusing on the industry that you know best with the people you know best? And I was like, okay, well, this seems to, if I got to take some bets, if I need to try and figure out where we're going to win, let's make this bet. Let's figure out where we're going to win. So Corey actually was the very first runner we worked with. And I shouldn't even say worked with. Corey did it pro bono because she's a good friend, but that's what led me into really starting to focus on the running market. We've, tried a bunch of other sports and endurance sports, swimming as well too, and we're doing some stuff there too. But the running community has been like disproportionately like linked with and good for, and vice versa. Hopefully we've been good for the industry too.
So then it's people led the growth. I believe you started working with Keir D'Amato and Lindsey Hine and people like that who had an audience that trusts them. And these are people who care about their performance and recovery. How did you go about identifying who it makes sense to work with and why did they say yes?
Yeah, well, I'll start with, I guess, the second part first and then kind of who we identified, because I think I've gotten better at the who we identified over time as well too. You kind of got to learn about trial and error there. But in terms of how we began, I think really what I was learning was, you got to take some smaller bets that you can like manage and like, what are your wins and losses going to look like? And it all like depends on how big your business is. And at the most, I'm probably oversharing, but like, raised a couple $100,000 from friends and family. So like that was the most money we had. But I got to a cliff probably, in like late 2022, early 2023, where I found out if I'm not doing things profitably, I don't have a path forward. So I needed to figure out how to, like, any bet we were making was going to be a smart one. So yeah, I started to identify people that I thought really made sense to work with, that were going to seem like interested in supporting the brand. I'd say that like what's good about finding a market that and you're passionate about is I think you're naturally going to find that people want to work with you more so than just like some random person. And I know, Jonathan, we've actually talked about this a lot, right? Like every business has their own economics in terms of what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Sometimes like Lagoon's financials just aren't like beneficial because we're not a repeat purchase type of product. And maybe not everybody's always in the market for a new pillow, or like maybe people just like don't get the idea of like what we're trying to accomplish. So sometimes our economics are just different, but like it's really important that every founder knows their economics and knows where they need to be, because like sometimes like deals just don't make sense. And like if you can't find a deal that like doesn't make sense for your business, then you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it, right? And some people will like, I think we're also past the idea of like growth at all costs. I think we're now living in an era where like, you have to be profitable. And I should like caveat everything by saying that like Lagoon being profitable is like a constant struggle. Like we're constantly trying to make things work. Do we have like perfect product market fit? Like maybe not. Like I think we're continually working on the idea of like trying to find that balance of like just being profitable enough so we can do some more experiments. But like the only reason I've been able to get some of these deals done where we've been able to grow just a little bit more is honestly because people get me or like understand what I'm trying to do or like the idea of us trying to build something within the running community. So maybe I could get a deal done for like $2,000 with a runner because they like what we're trying to build. Whereas like a home interior designer is like, my rate is $5,000, like take it or leave it. That just is what it is. So it feels awesome that I've found people that are willing to work with me or take a chance on me and actually like help being able to be part of like helping grow the business. And I mean, I can't even begin to name the amount of people that kind of took a chance on me and are willing to work with me, that hopefully they've seen good returns and we've been like long-term partner. I mean, you mentioned Lindsey Hahn. We've been working with her for several years now. She's been so amazing. I mean, Carrie Tollison really early on. She's like, Ryan, come on and run with me. The list goes on and on of the Minnesota people that have been really good to Lagoon as well too.
Kara.
Yeah, Kara, Carrie, Ben Blankenship, Emma, like the list goes on and on. So it's been awesome to just kind of, and Dakota, of course, like the Mrs. Minnesota. So yeah, like I said, the list goes on and on, but it's been because of that I'm like, okay, I can test, I can learn, I can figure some things out, and we can just start to slowly scale. But being able to do it within that same industry or that same ecosystem obviously pays big dividends too, because if you're trying to build a niche, you're trying to focus on a niche, you need people to start hearing about you from a couple different places too. So that's all part of the strategy too.
Hi friends, are you enjoying this episode? That's great. Would you do us a favor? Copy the episode link in your podcast player and share it over on LinkedIn with one thing that you're enjoying about the conversation. This is a new show, and we can't wait to continue to grow this new platform. Doing this will help more people find the podcast and make sure it's all sustainable. Thanks in advance, and enjoy. Are you investing in your health the way you invest in your business or in your career? That's where Eternal comes in. Eternal is a performance health company built for high performers like you. Their performance physical in New York City and San Francisco combines metabolic testing, mobility screens, and over 70 blood biomarkers to give you personalized insights for endurance and long-term health. Not nearby? Their foundations plan is expanding nationwide, starting with a blood panel and delivering a custom plan for your nutrition, supplements, and training, guided by sport-informed experts. Check out eternal.co and use code LRL for 10% off your plan. That's eternal.co. And make sure to check out our Long Run Labs episode with CEO Alex Mather and a conversation with their lead dietitian, Kelsey Bailey, over on For the Long Run. Let's dive deeper into it, right? Because the economics are interesting in that it's a $80 to $100 purchase that you might buy two, so it's $150 to $200, but you might do that once. Or maybe you have a guest room and so you buy, another set of pillows, or you gift it or something like that. But the lifetime value of a customer is going to be what, like $150, $200?
Yeah. So that's probably about where we are right now. And I don't mind sharing like any of the stuff, like, our average order value is around like $140. And we have a 5-year warranty on our pillows, which is really attractive because we sell a really high quality product. If you have any issues with it, like, know that this is part of the deal that, you get taken care of so we want to make sure people know they're buying into really a high quality product with a high quality brand. But the flip side of that, right, is like, don't expect to be like somebody to be coming back for a new pillow when that one should be good for 5 years. But people do come back for all those reasons you mentioned too. So our repeat customer rate right now is about 15%, and that number continues to slowly tick up. I actually think that's a pretty good rate for a pillow brand, that like 15% of our customers are returning customers. So yeah, I would say I would peg our customer lifetime value probably around $150, $160 right now. So that's a high number. Like if you're selling bags of coffee or whatever, you got to sell 8 or 10 bags of coffee to get to that. Or if you're selling supplements, you got to sell, 5 or 6 times. But that is why you see so many people getting into powders and supplements and things like that, because there is such a high repeat purchase rate. There is just an attractiveness from a business perspective to that type of business. And that's just not part of ours. But we do different things as well to make sure that we're keeping people coming around and trying to launch new products. Probably not launching as many new products as fast as I would like. But again, that's just kind of the push and shove of being like a small business where you're trying to do a million things at once too.
Yeah. So it introduces an opportunity, right? The two paths to profitability, or two of the paths to profitability, is reducing the customer acquisition cost or increasing the yield per customer. Yep. By selling additional products that are ancillary and mutually beneficial to anything with sleep. So you're looking at the CAC to LTV ratio in that capacity, or you're just driving down the cost to acquire the customer. So how do you think about that I know we've talked about brand partnerships and using brand partnerships as a way to drive down the customer acquisition cost, where you let somebody else do the marketing, or you can access somebody else's audience and community in an organic and authentic way that goes beyond paying a partner or an athlete or an ambassador to do that posting, because there's still that, paid component with that. How do you think about those two paths you can go down? And are there other paths that you think about in that profitability and viability discussion?
Yeah, those are the two main ones for sure, right? And like our customer acquisition cost is the thing I'm most focused on today, figuring out how we can acquire customers more profitably. I feel really good about the experience customers have when they have purchased our products and try our products. We have really low returns rate, but we have, quite a high rate of people that are just really happy with their products too. So how can we get our word out to people as cost effectively as possible? Our customer acquisition cost is too high today. You probably hear that from a lot of people. It's really hard being a challenger brand going up against people that are really well established. I will say, like, I've experienced already how like things get easier once you get a little bit bigger, right? Like even just take that example of 15% of our customers are repeat customers today. 3 years ago, like that wasn't a thing. Like, so
Right.
those people never existed. So that was something you didn't have. We had no reviews on our site before, so people didn't think we were legitimate. Now we have some reviews on our site. People like think about it. And now 2-3 years ago, when people heard about us from Corey, they're like, maybe I'll take a chance on this brand. Where now people might hear about us today from Dakota and Emma and Kira and be like, okay, if 3 people are talking about it, then maybe I feel a little bit more confident in taking a chance. So all that to say that I think there are ways to drive down customer acquisition costs, but you'll constantly hear people say that the bigger you get, the more you're going to have to spend to acquire a customer too. I probably only think that's true when you get to a point where you're doing like $100 million in sales. And then you're like really reaching to find consumers. We're not there yet. I think enough people haven't heard about the business where I do believe we should be able to lower customer acquisition costs. So if we do that well today, I think that's a great strategy to focus on first and foremost. If you're building a strong brand, you're hopefully building the idea that people want to come back to you more and more and more over time. So you should be building that customer LTV just by continuing to provide value over time. I think one of the things like that I love that we do, we try really hard with organic social content. It's really hard with a small team and somebody that doesn't love doing content. But just as an example, I write a blog post every Thursday. We put it on our newsletter every Thursday. The idea isn't really to sell products with that. It's just to like provide valuable tips, news, information. So people like actually really understand we are trying to help people sleep better so that they can perform better too. Really just trying to build brand affinity over time so that when you think about sleep products, you do think about Lagoon. We're like one of the good people trying to do things the right way over time. So I think that's more of a long-term strategy. So CAC first, LTV, longer play if I, had to answer your question the long way.
One of the things that you did very early on that is one of the things I love most about the brand is, okay, so you're buying a physical product online that there's a high level of preference involved in and individualized preference where you and I have different comfort levels and we like a firm pillow versus a soft pillow versus a back sleeping on the back, the side, the stomach, etc. Your website addresses this through a quiz that I think is ingenious. And it reminds me a lot of the Brooklinen shopping experience where every time I go on Brooklyn and I'm like, if I enter their quiz, I'm 50% likely to buy something simply because it like convinces me to through the quiz. I in fact once showed up on their Brooklinen is higher end, well, I don't know, higher end, a very nice bedding company that does a bunch of other sheets and blankets and all sorts of bathroom stuff as well. And I remember going through their quiz once, product identifier. They have, I don't know, 80 products, 80 SKUs you can choose from, but you're only ever displayed like 3 of them. And I remember going through their product finder and the description of the sheets was something like, do you always want to feel like you're on the cool side of the pillow or something like that? And I was like, fucking course I do. Like, and I bought the sheets because I was like, this description or the pillowcases, that's what it was. And so I bought it because of that. And you guys have a quiz on your site. Yeah. Where did that idea come from? How did personalization become such a paramount and major focus for you? And talk to me about the, capturing email focus of that strategy.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to talk about the quiz because it's one of the things that we've done the best, or like it's been the biggest, led to the most success of the business. But I also love your experience too, because one of the things I've loved most about being a business owner and being in D2C is the human psychology of marketing. And just like the idea of being like leading people from 80 to 3 is like, that's such a marketing tactic that really works. And the psychology of just using the right words to like give people that visceral experience of like, this is what I want. They do a great job at it. And like, at the end of the day, they deliver great products. So it's not like they're doing anything deceptive or anything like that, but using the tools, using marketing to actually guide the consumer to the right destination, like you just nailed it in terms of how it should be done.
And the feelings and emotions that I experienced led me to spend $40 or whatever it was that I paid for the
Yeah,
betting.
100%. So that dovetails into the quiz. And like I say in jest, but in our early days, I was like, the quiz is the only thing that's working about our business.
You said that to me once a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And because people do like something that's personalized towards them, and they do like being like guided in the right direction too. And I mean, if you like go type in pillow on Amazon and tell me that that's a good experience, you're probably going to like search by reviews. You have no idea what you should pay. Is it $4? Is it $250? So again, we were trying to gear people towards what would be best for them. I really do feel like we have a great lineup of pillows that meet the needs of all different types of sleepers. And then like, the finishing touches, you actually get to add and remove fill to make it customizable to you. But like for any like business owners or D2C owners or whatever out there that are like thinking about doing a quiz, like do the quiz, because people generally love taking quizzes. I will say the caveats to that are people don't like taking quizzes that are too long. So like don't ask 20 questions because people are like get frustrated and leave. And also don't make people give you their email address, because like it's real, like it can be really frustrating. You might get a bunch of responses, but you actually are probably hurting brand affinity at some point. Where like I just took one yesterday and I gave my email address to this. It was a skincare company and they like made me. And so I gave them the email address because I wanted to see the results, but I'm mad at them. Like my emotion, my feeling is anger that I felt like I had to give them. Whereas, we offer you, if you want to include it and you want to get follow-up emails from us. So sorry, aside, but I do think that's an important thing to make, because it really does go into how you make people feel about you. And there's good ways you can do it. Like we do it, you would incentivize people. If you give us your email, you're actually entered to win a free Oura ring. Like that's pretty cool. So there are ways to do it. But the thing that's great about the quiz is email capture is super important. If you're doing it the right way, doing it responsibly, what we do now, and Jonathan, I know you're on our email list and probably many listeners are, we have a really aggressive email campaign welcome flow that goes right after you take our quiz. It's actually 14 emails over 14 days, which a lot of people, like their heads will explode when they hear that and be like, oh my God, that's so aggressive and like so over the top. But like, I don't even realize how many emails I get that it's like really not that many. It's not like we're sending 14 emails that, say, hey, buy this pillow. Hey, buy this pillow. Hey, buy this pillow. It's 14 emails where we're providing a lot of value. Like one email is just dedicated to the importance of deep sleep. One email is just dedicated to the importance of REM sleep. One email is talking about building your ultimate sleep routine. So you're like building affinity and like things all through that process. If you have somebody's email, you're able to create a lot longer relationship. Whereas if you don't have their email, you're basically just relying on retargeting people with Facebook ads, which, I mean, we do that too, but it's way less of a cohesive story than if you're able to start creating a relationship with people over email. So that's why I think it is such a good tactic and one that's been successful for us.
Definitely. It makes sense. And again, for such a personalized product, like you point people to one option.
We do one. We started with 3, but it's interesting. It all depends on what your product is too, right? Like, for Brooklyn, and it makes sense because maybe you're in the mood for a pillowcase, maybe you're in the mood for sheets, maybe you're in the mood for something else. But like when you put 3 different white rectangles in front of people, they're like, I don't know. I'm still a little bit confused.
Yeah. Help me pick which one.
yeah, exactly. So we have found over time that just being like, this is the best one for you works. And like I said, our match rate is pretty good. We have less than a 5% return rate. So I'd say we're doing pretty well in terms of how we're matching people.
That's like 4 times better than retail standard, no? Or e-commerce? Is it in return rate normally like 20%?
Apparel's got to be the highest. I would think probably apparel's got to be somewhere around 20 plus. I say betting is I think betting is double digits, 10 to 12, I think is kind of the industry average for us.
That's not bad then. Okay, so you mentioned Oura. So talk to me about how you think about brand partnerships in the space. A couple of weeks ago, you and I were chatting about a conversation I had with Ross, the CEO and founder of Cadence, and how they've aligned with Bandit, for example, where Bandit was a much bigger company than they were initially. And now they're both benefiting from the growth and from having a strong product to share with the audience. Again, not a competitor because one is a hydration product and the other is apparel, mutually beneficial. So talk to me how you think about aligning with other brands. And maybe the 8x8x8 challenge comes into play as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great highlight. I think it's something that's super topical right now. And I think there are a lot of brands that are doing a great job with it. I mean, we need to be doing more of it for sure, too. I think that there is something to be said about the smaller challenger brands trying to find brands that are, just a little bit bigger to try and like lift or elevate your brand to people that, are in the same space, but like to show some affinity for people that are trying to accomplish separate things. I think you've got to find your right types of partners for the stage of business you're in as well, too. We've joked about this, like Aura isn't going to drop everything they're doing right now and say, okay, Lagoon, you want to do this? Like we're all on board.
Right.
But there are like certain things you can do. And like, I mean, you can even be creative and crafty. Like we just did a giveaway with the 6 Minute Mile newsletter and we gave away an Aura ring and it literally meant us buying an Aura ring and giving it away too. I'm a big fan of what they do. I know people that work there. And so I don't mind, buying one of their products and like having it be associated with us. So people do a lot of those things too that just, again, help build your brand affinity because it's things you support that other people like as well too. So you can start off small with things like that. But as you get bigger and more legitimate, you can start getting partnerships meetings with people. And yeah, to your point, the thing we were talking about, I've been working really hard to try and build our 8x8x8 event into a true event that, a lot of people are involved in. The whole concept is to try and for 8 days straight, starting on August 8th, have people run 8 miles and be in bed for 8 hours for 8 days straight. It's kind of a play on David Goggins' 4x4x48. Is that using his numbers right? But yeah, just the whole idea of balancing getting optimal sleep and really getting out there and running and doing something athletic. And, challenges are fun. So I'm going to be working on trying to have some other brands more involved in that. But right now, I mean, just like I find athletes or creators or whatever it is, find the people where you feel like you kind of have some unfair advantage because you created a relationship. So, I mean, one of the brands we've partnered with, and I know you're close with too, and we really like just because he's been almost like a mentor to me, is David at Previnex. Has been great. We did a partnership and a giveaway with them. And again, they're a little bit ahead of where we are too, but we talk to the same space, interested in the same people. So find your people even when it comes to brands.
How do you think about what the next 6, 9, 12, 18 months looks like? How do you have a roadmap? Is there financial modeling? How do you think about the future?
Yeah, it's really easy to fall into one of two camps, like build the model and, never be able to hit the model, or just not have a model and, just like fly by the seat of your pants. And I've actually been in both situations. At first, you have best laid plans and nothing goes according to plan. And then you're like, okay, why do I have this plan when I'm clearly not going to do $10 million in revenue in year 2? And then you just kind of have to like start building the business. So, I mean, I look at our financials on a monthly basis. I do set annual plans and like I find it best to just set like a big target, know proportionally about where we want to be spending our marketing spend. And just, for anybody listening that's interested, like our marketing spend is divided. Our biggest expense is on Facebook ads. Our next biggest expense is on podcasts. Our third is on athletes and influencers, and then like Google ads and, other ancillary things kind of after that. But that's kind of how, we look at it. And I'm constantly watching, the term is MERS or like ROAS, return on ad spend. If you look at, how well your marketing dollars are doing for how much revenue you're doing. And yeah, I mean, it's just so important to make sure that you're being profitable. So that's really what I'm looking for every month, because profitability just basically shows, is what you're doing working or not? The only caveat to that I would say is like, how much are you putting into R&D or product development? And I mean, for some businesses that are like really building technology or like, building something completely new and novel, you're probably going to need to, to take on capital. It could be debt, it could be institutional investors or whatever it is to like build something that, is entirely new. But if you're rolling out new products, refining, enhancing, and continuing to build your product line, you need some amount of cash flow to be able to do those things too. So I'm constantly watching our cash flow and figuring out what we can put into developing and rolling out new products as well.
How do you think about the capital component? And I know you mentioned initially you raised some money from friends and family. What did that look like? Maybe not the numbers, but the process of doing that. And then it doesn't sound like you have institutional investors. So that enables some sort of freedom, but also some sort of restriction based on what you can and can't do just from a free cash flow standpoint. So yeah, super curious about that. The angel investing space and VC space is something I'm personally fascinated in and with. And I've made a couple of bets myself, and it's really fun to be a part of that space and invest in people and things that you believe in strongly, and then have a vested interest in the success of those companies. And so going beyond just, a contractor agreement or a consulting agreement or something like that, but to really be co-aligned in the success of the company, because your financial future could be impacted by it as well. So how do you think about that conversation?
Well, I think like anybody that to not raise any money, like you could do it in D2C. You like hear a couple of stories of people that have built a brand, like not raising.
Yeah, if you strike gold immediately.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really hard, like really, really hard to do. Like the only stories I feel like I hear of people doing it are like, oh yeah, I used to work at, Facebook in the ads department. And like these guys like know all the secrets. So of course they're going to be primed to be able to do something like that. But, and then some people raise a bunch of money and never find product market fit or never find out how to be profitable. I feel good about the path that we took. I actually think it's a great exercise for anybody starting a business to go through the motions to like raise money from friends and family, because you need to have your story straight. You need to like be able to tell a business case in terms of like why you believe this will happen. You need to be able to show the people that care about you the most that you're actually passionate about something and like willing to take a risk. And like those are going to be the people that will call BS on you first. So if you're not able to get like $10,000 from a couple of your buddies, that probably means you're not serious. Like you're not serious enough about it. And like your best friends called your bluff. And so, I think that was a good exercise in and of itself for me. You do start to then feel like the skin in the game too. I joke back to the fact that my father-in-law is an investor and he likes to scare me, he likes to scare me on occasion. I'm like, okay, yeah, when I'm dealing with my father-in-law's money, it just makes you stop and wonder and think. So if you're skin in the game, I mean, of course, I put skin into the business as well, too. If that's not enough, a lot of people are motivated by the fact that, hey, you got real money from people that, you care about counting on you as well, too. But I will say that, I mean, it's motivated me because I want it to be true. I've heard it's true. And like, I honestly do feel like it is true that, one of the biggest indicators of success is how willing the founder is to work for the thing. And like, I've worked so hard to try and make Lagoon work. And, maybe some people would have taken the business out behind the woodshed or said like, hey, the product market fit isn't good enough. But I'm like, no, if the most deterministic factor is like how hard somebody's willing to work, you haven't tried everything yet. You haven't tried your hardest. Yeah, this feels hard, but like you can keep going. So I feel like I've persevered and I feel like that is really important. So for anybody looking to, invest or whatnot, especially at an angel early stage, like you're talking about, that is what people say, like take a bet on the person. So if you know somebody that's just like a killer or know somebody that like seems like they have a good idea and they're super passionate about, do that rather than the like 10th guy that comes to you with the AI idea, because like you might be thinking of a new AI idea like the week afterwards and then you're screwed, right? So
one of them was Brooksy, the event management company.
Oh, yeah.
Fundraising a $2 million round to fund their technology advancement.
They're amazing.
Laurel, which is like an incredible upgrade to the way that races get timed. And Phil DeMonte is the CEO of that company. And I've said to a number of people, like, I would follow Phil into a burning room if he suggested it with no questions asked.
I mean, I don't know how Phil does what he does. Like, yeah, exactly. Right. You see the people and you're like, yeah, I like what he's doing.
And you just know that like, if you put your trust in someone like that, it's probably going to work, or it's most likely going to work versus anything else that is an opportunity.
Yeah. One of the stat I like that I think you'll appreciate too is like they say 9 out of 10 like startups don't work or whatever. And like I actually oddly, whether it's on like the Peloton leaderboard or whatever, I'm usually not happy if I'm not like in the top 10% of something. So I'm like, okay, I should really, I should really try and figure this out, because if that's usually what my typical standard is in like athletic ordeals or whatever, like, come on, those odds are with you. Let's do this thing. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So how has running and swimming and triathlon helped you in business?
Yeah, it's funny because I think it's super helpful and complementary. More in the moment, I think I probably shared enough about how my background, I think it's instilled in me a lot of character traits and things like that. But actually in the day to day, it helps keep me really regimented. So like, I'm heading into, start a 16-week training plan for a 100 miler and you're like, okay, I'm going to be spending a lot of time running. but it actually forces me to be super regimented about how I'm spending my hours of my days as well too. And I mean, everybody knows it. It's so easy to let hours slip away if you're not being super intentional about what you're doing. So I actually find that when I have something on the calendar, when I know I need a lot of time to do certain things, then I become super regimented in everything that I'm doing. So usually it ends up just like putting me in a good frame of mind to be getting things done.
Love it. Ryan, was there anything that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't get to?
Not off the top of my head, but I mean, I'll just say that like, I love what you're doing. I love the idea of you talking with other founders in the space. I would say that like anybody that's thinking about starting a business or has an idea that they're passionate about, it really has never been easier than today to start. So if you like want to do it, go do it. I mean, Jonathan, we're just talking before the recording. Like, I mean, being your own boss, it's hard, scary, terrifying. Like, there's periods of time where you're not making any money and you're like wondering, what the heck am I doing? But at the end of the day, if you can get it right, and like hard work is the number one like determinant of you getting it right, then bet on yourself, and like being able to control your own destiny is pretty great. So when I like look back, on my life or the decisions I've made, I'm going to look back and say, like, in my 30s, there were years that I maybe didn't earn as much money as I could have, but my life is fine. Like our family's doing fine. Life is good. And I get to control my own destiny. I love what I'm doing every day. I get to walk my kid to daycare, pick him up, control my own schedule, all these things. So like, if it's not about the dollars, it's about doing what you love doing. And like, what better way to find something that you love doing than like charting your own path. So I love that you're doing this, because I love instilling the idea in anybody that may be on the fence about it to go out and chase it. We need more entrepreneurs. We need more people doing crazy fun things.
Take the leap. I love it. Ryan, thanks so much for the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Long Run Labs. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. We'll be back next Tuesday with more stories at the intersection of endurance and entrepreneurship, from the people shaping the outdoor industry in ways big and small. Until then, keep showing up, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there. This show is produced by Dylan Delaney of Delaney Video LLC, with musical composition by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound, and managed overall by Emily Holland of Wild Poppy Creative.